Hello and welcome to IAB Pulse, our regular video news show where we discuss the hottest and most important topics in digital advertising today. I'm your host, Jeffrey Bustos, VP of Measurement, Addressability, and Data at the IAB. Today, we'll be discussing consumer changing behaviors, how marketers should be adapting to them by leveraging data, understanding the shopper mission, and most importantly, looking to enhance the consumer experience. Joining me today to discuss this amazing topic is Michelle Weiskittel, Senior Director of Retail Media Networks, Creative Operations at Albertsons Media Collective, and Phil Schraeder, CEO at GumGum. Welcome to the virtual stage. Let's chat. To kind of kick us off, would love to see how each of you have observed consumer shopping behaviors change recently.
For us, it really starts with the customer journey. And I think retail media networks have really been able to amplify and put the customer at the center. Using our privacy conscious data, we're able to tap into purchase behaviors, as well as just general theme shopping behaviors that allow us to understand, build content and a story around that customer journey in an omni-channel way. So for us, it really all starts with that customer journey and bringing a shoppable experience.
And I can echo it off of Michelle. From our end, what we've prioritized is really leveraging our contextual technology, our global reach and scale in understanding those digital environments, right? Web pages, videos, et cetera, and really leaning into then marrying that with what creatives are really driving the results, right, for retailers. And what we have found from the consumer's experiences by bringing that level of data and understanding into those moments, and then seeing the way that brands have been connecting to those consumers, not just with a performance-first mindset, but with a full funnel mindset, unique different creatives, pulling in the data from those environments to help really show that they're in that moment with the consumer, has really shown tremendous lift in showing that that consumer is responding, whether that be from the KPI outcome to ROAS or to engagement. But you're actually seeing shoppers look to other types of formats to actually engage with the brand in a deeper way. And that's been exciting to watch that kind of transition happen and watch those consumers really lean into that.
I wanted to kind of dig into that, specifically in terms of how you're using data to deepen consumer understandings. How do you see them? How is your team enhancing the offerings for the consumers? As you said, that they're more open to engaging with different platforms and media.
Yeah, so I think what it's boiling down to is like we're obviously in a digital first world and consuming digital across all of these different channels, right? And just growing faster and faster. The ability for a retailer to stand out, right? Even within leveraging, their privacy and their privacy compliant, privacy conscious data asset, they need to stand out. And so for us, like how then that like knowing of that environment is valuable to then the influence of the creative message or the way in which that message shows up, highlighting the right offer, highlighting the right tone, right? And how you're extending that through these different environments is how they're gaining that connection. And so that's a way we're seeing the consumers start to respond. So as you look at, the Walmart DSPs or Amazon DSPs and partners that are continuing to look at ways to, leverage that asset, they're continuing to look at ways to continue to expand those creative options, really think about expanding into highlighting the value of a retailer's solution in that moment. That not only then has shown that its connection to the consumer through the results, at least what we've seen at GumGum, it allows them to also stay in real time, current and evolving as they go through their day-to-day lives, grow, change, and evolve themselves.
I think for us at Albertsons Media Collective, again, it really starts with the customer. And what I really love is when our brands or our CPGs tap into us with what they want to learn and creating a learning agenda. So, we work in a very simple objective by KPI framework. But when you really pair a testing strategy to understand the messaging paired with, hey, I have a lapsed customer, or I am launching a new product, that's when it becomes very powerful. And I think that it changes how a retail media network can be used. We do know that, we represent a massive opportunity with over 2,200 stores, and have, that ability to drive in store through the digital experience with that customer journey. But it's important to have a strong testing strategy and really think about not just from an immediate sales perspective, but what can you learn and how do we expand that, and really to an omni-channel customer experience. Needed my coffee on that one with omni-channel.
And I'm just sitting here like, yes. I'm like, we will, because we totally agree, right? It gives that level of humanness to like really understanding and doing the work, the way the message gets delivered, regardless if, that's the customer. And that work is so powerful and valuable. And it's so much more and available now in the retail media space than it has been before. And that's exciting.
Yeah,
I love
and the
that.
change really is in formats. I think it's the availability plus the formats, and expansion. So for us, expanding into CTV and really making a meaningful footprint there, and what we can do in video and the partners we chose, and then again in carrying that into store.
Michelle, I want to dig in a little bit into digital new formats. Obviously, we're seeing an emergence of, the flywheel in retail media, and, you guys are expanding social and CTV. As we move into these new digital formats, how should advertisers think and adapt their strategies to target these specific areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would say it's still the basic principles of really starting with that objective of what you want to achieve from a customer perspective. We are fortunate enough in a retail media to still really leverage our privacy conscious loyalty card information to tap into behaviors. And so for me, a retail media is just a new way to tap into behaviors, in different environments, and really be able to close that loop. So I don't really think it changes. But what happens is you now actually have, a different way to think about the behaviors and really tying it back to the core shopper.
And if I could add to that, it's so interesting as Michelle says that, because then where GumGum comes from is one, obviously, Michelle laid it out. When you're working with partners or looking to connect with the consumer, you have to think just full funnel, and you have to think omni-channel. And that's what Michelle's even referencing, right, through these new channels. For us, if we are going to look at ways that we can help and shape that successful activation for Albertsons, we need to be able to have the contextual understanding with all of these different environments, right? So GumGum looks at frame by frame within CTV. We have to be the ones to help them leverage new creative formats like overlays and in-video formats that can give them this optionality to continue to understand those moments in these new channels, be offering them up new creative experiences in these channels, right? And then be able to provide that back to them to continue to sharpen. Ultimately, their goal is that deep connection, brand loyalty, and ultimately full funnel connection to that consumer. So that's where I see it so exciting.
Yeah.
So hearing Michelle go in that way, and then we're like, well, we're giving you frame level, we're working at frame level information and new formats and overlays and shoppable stuff or things. It's like, there's all of that kind of working in that kind of move, which is so exciting. And it's like now just kind of working on like how we make magic of that, and solve the goals. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And you actually inspired me to change my answer a little bit. So I hope you don't mind, Jeffrey. What I would say is, if you think about the journey that retail media networks have been on, and I'm going to go back many years, really when it was more of the shopper marketing journey, It was very much about engaging your audience, and maybe it's a very much a price and item type of message. That's important. That does drive an action. However, I think now the evolution of the different formats that we can test and utilize is really where the expansion of retail media networks are going into deeper awareness type of platforms, but also with their messaging and their content strategies. And content is really taking this resurgence. So it started with, hey, I have a specific type of behavior I can target, and really thinking more directly about that conversion. But now I think we're starting to just see the importance of content come back into that customer journey. So slight pivot, we're still doing all the right things, but it's really more about the evolution.
Retail media is like really taken off, right? And so, all of the retailers are now really focusing on a lot of just leveraging, a privacy conscious mindset, their data, realizing and harnessing its power, and really have started to see strong results and like doubling down in that and doing that. And you're seeing that happen across all retailers, right? And if you take a step back, and that's why I love that you adjusted your answer, Michelle, in the way that you framed it, because it's also like, but we got to remember, like that might be similar of who they're trying to take from me as a customer. And that's where the format and the full funnel approach, and to your point, the right message and still leveraging it, but staying as connected and current in moments and in culture that allows you to just stay really, really, tapped in to your customer in all of those ways and give them new experiences to engage. Like we all want, right? We want new and we want fresh. That's what we want as people, right? And that's why, I forget the stat, but there's a stat like if something's a new ad format, like don't worry about the attribution model. It's there already because you get all the initial attention on it, right? And so I think there's ways right now. I think it's nice to see retail media being like, okay, good, we've gotten this, we're figuring this out and tightening it. Now let's innovate in these formats, and let's innovate in the ways we can think about bringing, the value to our customer. And that's exciting for us because we, the signals and the creative are our wheelhouse. So it's a good time for us to partner with the likes of those retailers, which is great.
I love that you mentioned value to the customer, and Michelle earlier mentioned shopper. And I think one of the things that I love about, retail media, especially what we've seen the last year, is that there's been a greater focus on what is the shopper mission and kind of starting from there. So Michelle, would love to kind of like, what is your advice on how brands can leverage this data to really align to the shopper mission?
I'm really proud because we're still young, but at our launch, we started with that mission of trust and transparency and making it about the shopper. And, I talk about this a lot, but there's a certain business problems that we can solve by tapping into our shoppers and understanding our shoppers and applying that to our brands. Ultimately, our brands and Albertsons, we have a shared customer. And I think that's what's really nice about when you're thinking about the experience a retail media network can bring, is that focus on customer, because it is the shared customer and we need to make sure that that journey is correct. And that's why we've always operated in a very objective by KPI framework.
And internally, just to add on GumGum's side, just to add to Michelle, like, yes, as a technology company, as we are B2B, but our mission internally and our vision is shaping meaningful connections for everyone everywhere. We operate as a team that I'm B2C. If we're working with Albertsons, I am an Albertsons shopper is how I need to show up. And that's how we need to partner together, and then how we really then own that identity, so that then the value we can bring is just how I, as an Albertsons shopper, am experiencing, driving to the outcome, and really seeing the value of what they bring. And so for GumGum, that's really been at the ethos of why, as much as we can provide a lot of new future innovative ways, whether that be from the data we provide, the attention, the real-time insights, the new formats that can deliver scale across the globe. allow you to tap into that omni-channel strategy, then we are the Albertsons shopper. And that's then how do we enrich that or help that, right, in a way.
Digging into kind of like looking as a customer, I think we're seeing a lot more innovation in shopping formats where we're really, I think we're moving into an era of adaptive commerce. And obviously one of those biggest drivers of that is the prominence of CTV and streaming. Michelle, you guys have done, a lot in CTV over the last few months. What are the unique opportunities do you think that this offers to both brands and consumers?
I think at a starting point, we always want our experiences to be additive, and not distractive to the experience. And when talking about omni-channel, I think you hear as much about how the actual journey is disruptive now, that it is really being in the right moment in the right context. So for shoppable, for example, in CTV, we launched with a QR code in our creative. And the ability to integrate the experience in CTV and make it easy for the customer to carry through and add that to cart. We know we provide a solution. Often that solution could be around recipes, and making it very simple to just add all of those ingredients to cart.
With recipes, you find a great recipe and then you can never find the ingredients. And then you kind of just capture that consumer problem and then you're solving it. Yes, Phil.
Sorry, I get excited. And so then I'm like loving what she's saying, because then for us, with us, and why we've been so focused on the moment, like you mentioned, right time, right moment. Imagine we're looking at scale videos, frame levels, and there's kitchens and it's a family cooking that meal. And then that triggers the 15-second or the other, right? Like, so now the ability for us to, right, like just see the moment, right? Like, because I'm just like you, like Jeff, I like, oh, I just want to go to cart. But like, if I'm engaged in some of these new digital formats and I want to remain engaged, tap me when I'm emotionally, oh my God, they're having this amazing family fun dinner and there's this fun recipe. I want to have that fun. How can in that moment, a creative be there to help set up Michelle for that maximum success there? And that's where we get excited at GumGum, is like that level of understanding, that level of that new creative to be like, hopefully make that ability for what we know the consumer wants convert. Yes, for the retailer, but also for themselves, because then they forget about it and they move on and they're like, oh, if only I could have just put that there at that moment, right? Because I think sometimes we focus on getting them to do something, like, but in that moment, I'm like, it happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, I want to buy that for my sister, or I need to do this, or I want to make that recipe. There was some easy way to just put it somewhere so it just doesn't go, because I'm like, oh, I forgot that. Now I moved on. It's what we're trying. That I think is this exciting part to exactly build off of what Michelle was saying.
I love your energy on this, and kind of, Phil, I would love to kind of dig into this a bit more. Kind of like when connecting with the consumer, like how would you tell a brand that they should be tailoring the customer experience, especially to your point, there's so many different environments from digital platforms. Like how do brands maintain consistency and engagement? How do you balance those two?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we recently launched was what we call the mindset graph first. We recently launched it and put it out into press. Because at GumGum, we are fundamental. It's our GumGum contextual technology. It's creative and it's a focus on attention. And we need to do that in an omni-channel way so that we can really understand all those moments and actually be an integrated partner into just the overall planning and setup of how we even start to begin to do what I just mentioned as the activation side. And so that's what we're really excited to do, so that then we can, as Michelle dives deeper into trying to navigate omni-channel for Albertsons, how that success can allow them to be as efficient and effective and provide the customer what they need in those moments. We need to be able to provide that. And I think for us on the consumer side, that's where we go back to. It's all about tapping more into the moment or the mindset of the consumer on leveraging once you've identified those outcomes of where they think that you can make that match. Now, when we look at environments like CTV, let's just take CTV as an example. There's what people are deeming premium, or there's CTV, like this is Netflix, right? We get that. And then you have all of this fast channel inventory, free ad supported streaming, right? That's massive, like the openness of CTV across that. And so right now, you then look at how are brands approaching that? They're either trying to go really right premium, the inventory, that's how they see the strategy or their results. Or maybe they're just not clear how to access the fast audiences in a safe way or navigate that and feel good about it. But when you actually take a step back and you look at what's available, if you're able to leverage right technologies, and of course I'm going to plug mine, but GumGum, for example, the reason why we say like we're MRC accredited for brand safety, suitability, and contextual within CTV at the frame levels. And so the goal is there's tons of fast channels that we might not know about that are all recipe content, are all cooking shows. And what a great place to, instead of thinking I need to just go premium, I can at scale with unique formats be a part of that first phase of what we are able to target at scale. Maybe it's, show level. And I know we're working on episodic. GumGum's already wanting us to get to the frame level, and we're trying to get that adopted into the industry because that's where we should go all the way at scale. But right now, how many of that, those pieces of amazing content in CTV on fast channels with an overlay ad that makes that experience better and is all cooking or all things that align with a targeted strategy that a brand may see valuable for them. And that's where we're trying to kind of bring awareness and try to help talk through the way that the shoppers can or the brands that focus on their shoppers can take a step back and look at the entirety of access and really think, knowing that there's tech and creatives that don't make them feel they're just stuck in one immediate lane right now that everyone else is trying to fit. And then how do we make them feel and understand that access to those moments in a safe and then ultimately effective way back to connect.
Well, I'm really excited for the consumer, and great thing we're also consumers. I think we definitely have
Yes.
an exciting, I think it's exciting how we're really focusing on moving away from the disruption of the experience to the adaptive commerce. I want to thank both of you so much for joining us today, Michelle and Phil. You guys were really fun.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really means a lot.
I wish we could do this for another hour.
Totally.
But yeah. And again, thank you again to our viewers and listeners for leaning in. This has been an IAB Pulse. Let's chat, and we'll see you soon on the next episode. Thank you so much. Bye.